Sonny, your guys, 70-62. Illinois beats Indiana. Was not quite the performance that I think some Illinois fans wanted. I think Illinois fans are still pretty optimistic from this, from what I'm hearing, and I don't blame them for that. Indiana was minus Ke'el Ware, but Malik Reneau is a really good player. Mackenzie Mbako's coming into his game a little bit more. Xavier Johnson, he was crazy, but he played better in this game. So I don't think there's any shame in it being a bit of a close game this time. But Illinois obviously comes out with the win, remains doing well in the conference. Sonny, what were your thoughts on the game?
You know, to kind of piggyback up what you were saying, it's funny. I've been listening to the national media podcast accounts, and the difference of like opinion of where Illinois is right now is vastly different. The national media is kind of in panic mode, and I'm sure we're about to talk about it right now. Is the team better without Shannon? Is this Underwood's teams all over again, et cetera, et cetera? I'm not in that boat whatsoever. It's like the game is much closer than it should have been, but there's a lot of factors that just didn't go our way either. We shot 15 out of 30 from free throws and layups. We missed some bunnies and missed some free points on our end. And obviously, Indiana didn't make a single three-pointer. And, a lot of people are, me included, I actually got in trouble. JR, I'm a big Underwood guy. I hype up Underwood. I've been on the show talking about how I can't believe Underwood has not been Conference Coach of the Year yet in his career. And all I made was a simple tweet yesterday saying, you know what? Brad Underwood's had a bad week. Even to this day, to right now, to this minute, if I refresh my mentions on Illini cast, someone's queuing up some sort of dialogue calling me a hater or whatnot. So, I don't know. It's a sensitive bunch. Again, I'm not too worried. Indiana's not a good team, but they've got a couple NBA players on that team. So, do we have issues? Absolutely. The whole Shannon thing, I'll let you guys talk about your opinion of the games and we can kind of come back to it. But offense, I'm really not worried about. Defensively, I'm still not sure what Underwood is doing the last couple of games, whether it's with Northwestern and not switching up the constant switching. Northwestern took advantage of that, and we didn't have a way to counteract that. Yesterday was a different idea. It's obviously because they weren't hitting threes. We were guarding the guys, or playing one-on-one down low. Indiana was having their way with it, but what a lot of the national media don't realize is that's kind of our game plan. That is Underwood's, like he's talked about it. What we're going to do is we're going to be super efficient on offense. We're going to let your big guy get the ball down low. Not everyone's Zach Edey. Okay, Zach Edey can overcome this sort of defense, but we'll let you take a contested shot near the hoop. And if you were to miss, we're going to run like hell. We're going to transition. We're going to, try to get quick baskets on our end. He does the math. Frank, you're all about this stuff. He'll trade the threes for the tough twos. And, Illinois to this day is one of the best defensive teams to force you to take tough 2-point shots. So a lot of people are complaining about, all the big men that are having monster numbers against Illinois. I want to say the last 4 or 5 games. But it's by design. So, that's where I'm coming from, just to preview. Yeah.
For the record, I don't think you're a hater, Sonny.
I promise you I'm not.
Actually, I think you're one of the more optimistic people about Illinois basketball. So you're further from a hater than I think. Frank, what were your thoughts on the game?
Yeah, I mean, going right off of what you said there, Sonny, I think that, Indiana hit some of the shots that Illinois was wanting them to take, and they just went in. And I think that Brad Underwood's a smart guy. Like, he is going to live with that. He's going to be like, okay, so like Malik Reneau got going really early in this game. And a lot of these were in these kind of like short roll. I'm going to take a, semi-contested shot in the middle of the paint. Like, all right, fine. If that shot goes in, like, cool, you forced a bad shot. One thing I thought was that it's interesting, Illinois won this game, but I was really interested in the dynamic of Indiana here, especially without Ke'el Ware, and that, we saw a good game from Xavier Johnson. He did get another technical foul. I know the flagrants and technicals have been piling up for him lately, and he's getting kind of a reputation, unfortunately. But
yeah,
is this like a big question I had circled about this game was, is this the game that like he needed to get going to be a consistent contributor going forward. But ultimately that was the main point, Sonny, I had was that Illinois was missing shots early on that they normally would make. Indiana was doing the opposite, and things just kind of leveled out there at the end. But one thing, you mentioned that Indiana didn't hit a three in this entire game. This morning I had to pull some numbers, pull some data. Over 3,600 games have been played this season. That's only happened 16 times this season where a team has not hit a three in a game. And only two D1 schools. The other was Baylor, fascinatingly.
Wow.
Interesting.
So I just had to know, like, especially in today's game, that seemed pretty rare. But yeah, I mean, I think really another thing to point out too, at least on paper, is IU going for 12 for 2 at the line or 12 for 22 at the line. That's not going to win you games. So, but I just feel like it was a game of a lot of variance. Just Illinois missing some early shots, Indiana making some early shots, and things just kind of leveling out there at the end as they should, and how this game unfolded.
Yeah, I want to touch on kind of what Sonny was alluding to there for a minute. I think you kind of alluded to it a little bit there as well, Frank. But the Terrence Shannon Jr. stuff. We'll talk about Indiana here in a second. But so I have conflicting thoughts on this, because do I believe Illinois is better with Terrence Shannon Jr.? Yes. Do I think Illinois is better right now, like the past couple games with Terrence Shannon Jr.? I don't think they've played as well, but I also think that's because Illinois' game did change a bit when Terrence Shannon Jr. went out. I think it was less about some of the bad matchups that you can put on people, and more about a non-stagnant offense where guys are constantly moving and obviously cutting and passes being made. Not to say that's not happening now, but it's just not happening at the same level. I think this is going to be a better team with Terrence Shannon Jr. on the court, but when you're asking mid-season an entire team to take away a player, change everything up, and then put that player back in the lineup, change everything back to it, it's going to be clunky. It's going to be a little difficult to put in there. And then on top of that, Terrence Shannon Jr. is not playing his best games. I know he had 12 points in this game, but 2 for 6 from the 2-point land, whatever, and then 0 for 4 from behind the arc. That is not Terrence Shannon Jr. every single night. Right? I mean, that's not going to keep happening. But what you are going to see is more of what he did in this game, which I thought was better, was he got to the line more often. He went 8 of 10 from the free throw line. And that's what good, experienced players like Terrence Shannon Jr. do, is they say, look, I'm not getting the baskets to go in, so I'm going to go drive into the paint, get a foul, so that way that I can, make an impact from there. Frank, I'm curious what your thoughts are on if Illinois is worse with Terrence Shannon Jr. on the court right now.
Yeah, I mean, I love numbers. I think anyone who's listened to me on here before knows that. And I'll be the first to point out the lack of credibility with on-off numbers. But I have followed Illinois this season, just with everything going on with Terrence Shannon Jr. off the court. But offensively, they have been better with him off the court, not by a ton. The offensive rating goes from 115 to 121 when he's off the court, but defensively they're much worse. So overall, they're actually a better team with him on the court. But I think what we see is the assist percentage goes up quite a bit when he's not on the floor, and that's because he's a guy who likes to create mismatches and he likes to go ISO, and that's his game, and that's what he's good at doing. But I think that what we see is we definitely see a different product, and that I forget what his season average is. I think it's around 20. Sonny, is that correct so far this season?
Sounds about right.
Yeah. So I mean, the notion that you remove Terrence Shannon Jr. from the equation, and that's just like a net 20-point loss. Basketball doesn't work that way. So what we saw, with him off the court, we saw guys like Domask really step up and then become like that almost the leading scorer. I mean, in that stretch there, we saw guys like Rogers, play really well. Luke Goode playing really well. I mean, as a team, I feel like Illinois was harder to defend. Where before it was just having to lock down Terrence Shannon Jr. and that was a good start defensively. At least this is a very talented team across the board. But I think that the anatomy of the team is very different. That there are a lot more avenues when he's not on the court, and he's a guy that, understandably so, wants to try to score. So I think that my definite answer is that it's a very different team, and the numbers do back that up too.
You think we're right, Sonny? What do you think?
I mean, I guess the way you answer the question, is the team not as good right now as it was 2 weeks ago? No, probably not. But does this team need Terrence Shannon to reach its ceiling? Absolutely. Right now, in the 2 weeks or 3 weeks that Shannon was gone, the team learned to play a different, completely different style of play, running the offense through Domask. The other guys stepped up. Right now, it's I feel for the kid. Terrence Shannon, obviously, he's gone through a lot over the past month, and he's got a lot on his mind. The guy is 1 for 14 from three-point land since he came back. This is a guy who, before he got this incident happened. I'll phrase it very carefully. Was you're talking about All-American, first team, finishing top 3 player of the year. That was that player. The guy now, his legs aren't completely under him. He's thinking too much. What he was doing before he left the team is he'd grab the rebound. He was the best transition player in the country. You give him the ball, he's just got an NBA body where he could put his head down, head straight to the rim, and either he was going to score or he was going to get free throws for you. Right now, that isn't quite there. And I think it's just kind of like a mental sort of thing. I think, Underwood's been very clear that the Big Ten matters, but, winning, he's won a Big Ten title. He's won the Big Ten tournament title. Right now, this season, he's got a bunch of veterans on this team. This team is about performing in March. And he knows that in order to perform in March to make it to Sweet 16 and potentially beyond, he's going to need a Terrence Shannon Jr. to be the alpha type of player. I think the offense is going to continue, and it has continued to run through Domask now. We found the guy. He's kind of like this, like the Scottie Pippen of the Bulls. Sorry, I'm from Chicago. I grew up watching the Bulls. Scottie was like the de facto point guard. Domask, is kind of that de facto point guard who runs the entire offense. Terrence Shannon's the one guy who, again, we're such a good rebounding team. We attack the boards, and then if you can get it to Shannon, he can attack the rim immediately. And as you talked about, get fouls on the other team. It's just a matter of his confidence coming back, his legs coming back. They've only had 3 practices since he's returned. So it's not like they've had a lot of, since they've adjusted their offensive philosophy, they haven't really had time to translate it to the court. So, it's not something I'm too worried about. I get the concern, but all you have to do is just look 1 year ago from today. The national champions, UConn. UConn lost 6 out of 8 games at the end of December and January. They went through a stretch where everyone else was writing them off. Right now is kind of the time to figure this out with Terrence. We're 1-1 in our last 2 games, but Northwestern's a pretty good team, and we lost on the road. A lot of teams are losing to Northwestern on the road this year. So, we didn't look that impressive against Indiana here at home, but it's a victory. And, victories in the Big Ten, they got to count for something. So we'll see what happens, Tuesday at Ohio State. I really want to see Terrence have his first, just pre-incident Terrence Shannon game where he scores 25 points. He looks like the guy that he used to look like. And then I think, then our team is in very good shape, for the rest of the year.
Yeah, no, I think you spoke a lot of truth there. Chris is coming in agreeing. Whoops, there it is. Chris is coming in agreeing that with me that Illinois is better without TSJ than with him. And like I said, for right now, this could be different. And Joe kind of said that there. It's not all about Shannon. The team overall is out of sync, and it's right. Some of this is on Shannon and his efficiency, but also some of it is how the offense changes with him in there and changing back to that, like we talked about. But you're exactly right, Sonny. I don't see this being a long term. This is going to be an issue. You would rather have this happening right now in January than you would, in March or at the end of February or something like that, because there's still time to figure it out. Let's hit on Indiana really fast before we get out of here with this one. Indiana, no Ke'el Ware. I heard somebody say that Indiana is better without Ke'el Ware. I don't see that. I don't see where the defense is without Ke'el Ware in there. I don't think anybody on on Indiana's team is a highly skilled defender other than Ke'el Ware. Malik Reneau scores a lot of points, and Mackenzie Mbako is coming into his game a little bit more. But I don't see the defense there without Ke'el Ware. Xavier Johnson had a nicer game, but he still did that stupid thing where he threw the ball at Coleman Hawkins' face, which, whatever. Tell Coleman Hawkins to get his hands up, I guess. I don't know. But this Indiana team just doesn't look great right now, and not hitting any 3-pointers is definitely not helping that. You have any thoughts on Indiana, Frank, before we move on?
Just one thing to add to what you said. I mean, I had to look up Ke'el Ware's numbers on off, and they are substantially better when he plays. So
yeah,
quantifiably to a certain degree, there's very little merit to that claim. That's all I have to say on that one.
Yeah, what do you think, Sonny?
I'm not sure. Like, how do you not shoot a 3-pointer in an entire game? Like, Indiana's...
Well, they shot 9. They just didn't make it.
Yeah, but even 9, in modern day college basketball, it's just not that many. So it's one of those where, I had Burke White from the Often Daunted podcast, also Big Banter podcast, on our show. And he was telling me he was the most optimistic Indiana fan. And if you listen to that show, you wanted to just shed a tear for the guy. And I have, they're in a rut right now. And, there's nothing that I saw necessarily on Saturday that I would be too optimistic about. Like, just the roster balance on that team doesn't make sense for, Mike Woodson, the guy who's now in his 3rd year. Like, he should have the roster built a little bit better.
Well, they just don't have anybody to replace Trace. I mean, that's the biggest thing. Trace was so much more important to this team than Trace Jackson Davis, that being, was so much more important to this team than people, I think, realize. For Xavier Johnson to be as good as he is, for the center to be able to be as good as he is. And at the end of the day, without Trace, they're looking for identity, and they're looking for who they're going to be. So kind of a sad state of affairs for IU, but I know our Purdue friends in the chat are not too sad for them. So they're A-okay with it. All right. Thanks for listening to the Big Ten Huddle. Please do like and subscribe. We appreciate that. If this was your first time listening, we are the Big Ten Huddle. We cover all things Big Ten football and basketball. We have a long episode every Sunday, Tuesday, and Wednesday night, all at 9 o'clock. So come in, check us out, get in the chat, let us know what you're thinking. We would love to have you join us and learn more about the Big Ten.